Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Lumos's Q2 FY26 results investor briefing. My name's Jane Lowe, and I will be your host for this session. Joining me today are Doug Ward, who's Lumos's Managing Director and CEO. Good afternoon to you, Doug.
Good afternoon. Great to be here, Jane. Thank you.
Afternoon. And we also have with us Barrie Lambert, who's Lumos's CFO. Good morning to you, good morning to you, Barrie.
Good morning, Jane, and good morning, everyone. Great to be here.
Great to have you as well. Okay, so the format for today's briefing is that Doug and Barrie will provide us with an overview of the key activities and results from the December quarter. We'll run through a short presentation, and after that, we'll open up the floor to Q&A. If you would like to ask a question, you can do that using the Q&A button in the Zoom ribbon at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get through as many questions as we can in the time that we have. So with the housekeeping out of the way, we'll get the show on the road. I'll hand over to you, Doug. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. Greatly appreciate that. First, just let me say thank you, everyone, for attending today's quarterly presentation. We greatly appreciate that, and certainly to all of our investors and to our board, we greatly appreciate the support that we receive from all of you on an ongoing basis. So with that, let's get into the details here. Go ahead, Barrie. So, for those of you new to Lumos, we typically just start a little bit with, hey, who are we? What are we trying to do here? So Lumos, right, is a developer, a manufacturer, and a commercial supplier of point-of-care diagnostic products. What that means is we're trying to deliver products that physicians can use close or to the proximity of the patient in real time, so they can use that information to have an impact on patient care. I like to think about Lumos in everything that we do. Ultimately, we're trying to improve the practice of medicine here, right? How can we make a profound impact on improving the lives of patients? Go ahead, Barrie. So the first content slide is just an overview of the key items for the business and for the quarter. Quite frankly, I'd just start by saying I think we had a terrific quarter for Q2 here in 2026. So we're making profound, I think, progress with FebriDx. That's our flagship product that we ultimately think is going to truly change how respiratory care is treated globally. And with our submission back in August, right, we communicated here in this quarterly review that we then submitted to the FDA in January. So we're kind of on the final clock, if you will, relative to that decision, and we still expect that decision consistent with our original guidance of end of Q3 or March, if you will. So more to come on that a little bit later on. But as you know, as we keep, I'd say, increasing our confidence and positivity about where FebriDx is going, obviously we have some great partnerships right now, and the key one is with Phase Scientific, who signed up to be the exclusive U.S. distributor for FebriDx. And in doing so, they signed up, right, a $317 million U.S. Distribution deal over 6 years with us. We're still in the initial phases of that agreement. Probably the next key milestone for that agreement is when we do achieve our CLIA waiver status. They will place a prepaid payment to us, $5 million US, on our grant. So that is one of the critical next steps in the organization and for Phase as well, because then we'll really start to ship product into their distribution hub significant volume in order to meet demand. So very, very exciting in regard to that relationship that we have. And ultimately, the reason that we signed that is because this is a huge market opportunity. I'm going to talk a little bit about it later, but we always emphasize, right? This is greater than $1 billion U.S. market, and we have no real competition, right? Competition is the fact that the physician makes their best clinical decision based on their assessment of the patient. And now they'll have a diagnostic test to help them going forward. So, we're just thrilled that we have something so unique and so helpful to the physician. But it's not just that there's so many patients, 80 million a year, if you will, that are treated for respiratory illness in the U.S., but you also need to get reimbursement and then coverage for that reimbursement. And we're really doing a great job. As everyone knows, we did get our PLA code for 4138. We do have all of the Medicare max paying for this level as well. And now we're seeing terrific inroads into the private payers here as we continue to go. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. On the commercial services side of our business, we continue to, I'd say, have a very steady ship there. We really love this part of our business. This was the legacy part of the business as a contract development, contract manufacturing organization. And we continue to have a terrific relationship with Hologic. We'll give you some updates. And also, we've recently announced our deal with AptiTech for a $1.9 million contract with them for home PKU testing for AptiTech. So very exciting part of our business and continues to do well. Overall, Barry's going to talk about the revenue and margins and so forth, but bottom line is the takeaway for me this quarter is you're really starting, even though we don't have CLIA waiver yet, you're already starting to see some nice progress here in the U.S. with our revenue numbers, right? 4 times larger than the prior corresponding period. And that's very, very exciting for us to see that type of growth prior to the CLIA waiver grant occurring, hopefully by the end of next month. And then lastly, we just have terrific partners. BARDA, for one, who reimbursed us fully around the CLIA waiver and are funding our pediatric study, and just a wonderful partner in every aspect, not just from a financial standpoint, but their guidance that they provide in participation and even in regard to CLIA waiver with FDA. So we greatly appreciate that relationship. And then our 2 largest investors, 10 Mile and Ryder, great partners. We still have that loan facility. We haven't tapped that as of yet. And, the good news is at this current time, we have no royalties and we're not paying any, and we have no debt on the books as well. So I think overall, we got a pretty clean sheet here. And it was just a terrific overall quarter for the business. Next slide, Barry. So as I said, right, we have these 2 businesses, our legacy business, commercial services. That's our contract development, contract manufacturing. It's a good, stable business with, a single-digit growth typically in that part of the business. What we really like about it is it's 50% gross margin, but actually it's a profit-making part of our business. So we do really like that business a lot. And then the other is our products. And obviously, FebriDx is the flagship there right now. We do have some other products in early development, feasibility in the women's health area. And we'll just briefly speak to that a little bit later on. Go ahead, Barry, and you can give a financial overview, please.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Just want to comment a little bit further on the quarterly results. As usual, we've got a financial summary here for the quarter. So 3 charts, same as previous quarters. Top left, we've got the quarterly revenue. In the middle, we've got the revenue mix. And then on the right, we've got the cash flow summary. And just to remind everyone again, for any new investors, our financial results are always in US dollars. So revenue for Q2 FY26 was 2.7 million. You can see there in the top chart. Consistent with the prior corresponding quarter in Q2 FY25, which was around 2.8. And I'll talk a little bit more about the mix of revenue because there's a couple of interesting points there. First half FY26 revenue was 6.1 million compared to 6.3 million in the first half FY25, which was impacted by the revenue we recognised on the Hologic IP agreement, which I'll talk about just in a minute. On the services side, we reported 2.2 million for Q2 across 12 projects, similar to the prior corresponding period. Strong contributions from the two contracts with Hologic, the development agreement and the IP agreement. But I just want to talk a little bit about the change in the mix because we recognised in Q2 FY26, we recognised significantly less revenue from the IP agreement. It was actually about 0.4 million versus 1.1 million in Q2 of FY25. So significantly less reliance on the revenue from the IP agreement and a lot more revenue from actual project work, which is a nice little feature for Q2 FY26. On the product side, revenue was 0.5 million in Q2 versus 0.6 million in the prior corresponding period. As Doug mentioned, over 4-time increase in product sales for Q2 versus the prior period. And again, also a change in the mix in revenue here. So in Q2 FY25, majority of revenue was from FebriDx sales, and that's now being backfilled with FebriDx sales. So with no sales of FebriDx in Q2 of FY26. So complete switch of revenue in products from FebriDx to FebriDx, which is a nice feature for Q2. Net cash outflow for Q2 was 1.5 million, around 500,000 per month. A significant improvement over the 4 million cash outflow in the prior corresponding period. And final point, just cash balance at the end of December was 3 million. And as Doug said, we still have the full loan facility of Australian dollars 5 million. It's roughly 3 odd million in US dollars available to the company to use going forward. I think that's it on the finances, Doug. I'm happy to take questions at the end of the presentation.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Barrie. So let's talk a little bit about FebriDx. I think that is obviously the huge opportunity for all of us in regard to where that stands. Next slide. So I think we just kind of I like to put this up because it just shows the work that the team has been really dedicated to in driving home what we've been doing from a reimbursement standpoint, ultimately to doing our study and getting that submitted, and then continuing to expand our label here, both from a pediatric standpoint as well as the CLIA waiver. And I think, if you take a look at this and correspond it to the share price, I just say, I think people we're gaining more and more confidence of the business, and hopefully that confidence is something that the market and investors can see in expectation of what's to come for this company. Because I do believe that with CLIA waiver, it's such a transformational event for Lumos and for medicine and for the market. And we're very, very excited about that. Okay. So probably we did announce in the quarterly that we did submit to the FDA. We're going to talk, there's a slide a little bit later. I'm going to go through a little bit more detail in regard to that. Not really much anything different than what was in the quarterly, but I just wanted to emphasize, that again, this was in line with the expectation and guidance that we actually gave the market when we submitted and did the announcement around that. So we were thinking, okay, you're going to get the 90 days for the FDA to give us a response to our submission, and they did that. And then you have time for Q&A and clarity, and then you submit to those questions. That's right within that guidance window that we originally were thinking as a company of when we submitted in August to when we believe that we would get CLIA waiver, which we said would be, by the end of the quarter, this current quarter, right? So we're in February. Good news is that means that, by the end of March, certainly we're going to be in a great place. So time is ticking and it's very, very exciting. So with that, Barrie, right, what you guys can expect around this is that, by the end of the quarter, certainly we're going to announce that we think that we're going to get CLIA waiver. Okay. And then with that, we'll have the announcement also that, we received the $5 million prepaid purchase order from Phase. So very, very exciting news to come here. And again, I think just quite frankly, the biggest transformational event here for Lumos has ever had, and very exciting and very positive and confident in that. Go ahead, Barrie. So for those of you who haven't sat through some of our discussions, listen, this all comes down to the fact that we're addressing an unmet medical need that nobody else in the market can do. Okay. That's really, really important here because, I've been in this field for 35 plus years and I've seen great technology come and go, great companies come and go, and some pretty, I would say, innovative solutions come and go. But if you're not addressing an unmet medical need in the market, it's tough to really get a foothold into the market unless you're competing on price. Okay. And for us with FebriDx, it's so unique in what it does by using your host immune response to say, is it bacterial or not? We can finally help the doctor actually make that decision, right? As an aid to have the physician decide whether or not they want to give that patient antibiotics or not. That's just critical. And with a 99% accuracy for ruling out that bacterial infection, it really helps that doctor. All of our voice of customer, the doctors, while they feel confident that they can make these decisions, they still give antibiotics to 40% of their patients, inappropriately so. And with FebriDx now, they'll be able to stand there and have an answer with a diagnostic IVD FDA cleared product that can help them as an aid to making this decision. So we're very, very pleased and really, really, like I've always said, trying to change the practice of medicine here with such a simple test. I love how simple it is, but the impact is just going to be tremendous for the market. Go ahead. So as we've talked about, and again, we just try to explain, why this market is so large. So in the US right now, our label is moderate complex. Roughly, we think that's, it's probably about $125 million market that this label addresses. It's about 18,000 sites here in the US, but with CLIA waiver, which means, right, the difference in the US versus other markets, here, either you have to operate under a CLIA license or you have to have CLIA waiver, okay? And CLIA waivers where all your GP offices, they don't have laboratories, right? Urgent cares, physician offices, and that's where most patients are seen, okay, in that setting. So you quickly change from 18,000 locations to 270,000. And that's about 80 million patients. Kind of, if you combine that with, our reimbursement of $41, now that's a huge, we don't count that as our TAM here as a market, but more around, if you took the $80 million market and, $20 to $25 a test that we and or our Phase will see, that's over $1 billion market. That's huge. It's a big opportunity for us. So we're very excited about that. Next slide. So the update, like I said, we submitted in August. Right? My experience is The FDA takes the maximum time, especially in that 90-day window when they first get the submission to when they give you, a letter with their feedback. The vast majority of the time, a manufacturer will get a letter, right? They could give you a denial. They could give you, a clearance, if you will. But vast majority of the time, they have more questions. So again, we did get that letter from the FDA, very straightforward. Again, no questions really about the performance of the test, if you will, in the clinical trial. But we did go back and forth with the FDA, a couple of meetings and formal correspondence via emails and so forth, to make sure that we thoroughly understood their questions and made sure about our responses. And as we said, the FDA did make some recommendations on some changes to our interpretation guidance in our QIR, and had us then assess that in a quick, I'd say 1-day evaluation, very, very quick from the time the FDA gave us that to the time we did the study. It wasn't a study, the evaluation. It was like less than a week. Yeah, less than a week, 5 business days or so. And then we informed the market the following week. So, we've kind of been right on top of this, right in line with what normally occurs in terms of submissions. That's why we're feeling so confident about it and so positive about it. So now it's a waiting game, if you will. They had the submission, they received it, and they acknowledged receipt. And now, we look forward to hearing from the FDA relative to that submission. Like I said, we feel confident in our expectation of that decision being done and dusted by certainly by the end of March or end of this quarter. So that's the critical element. We have, I did get a few questions from people. I'll just address it around, hey, some people would have liked for us to have an announcement around getting the letter. We appreciate that. We certainly take our requirements around disclosure very, very seriously. But because we actually gave you the time frames of when it was submitted to when we expected a response, in that guidance takes into account the 90 days, the time for Q&A, and then the 60 days at the end. So we're right in alignment with what we have provided guidance around. And there was nothing exceptional relative to the process that's occurred. This is now just the normal work that you have with the FDA. So we didn't see that as out of the norm and nor price sensitive. So, we did not put an announcement out around that activity. So with that, Barrie, let's go to the next slide. Update on the pediatric study. Listen, it's progressing. 90 patients at the end of December, now many more than that. I would just say that it's still early days, right? In this study, we're expecting it to go through the end of the calendar year or thereabouts. So a lot of work still to do in that study. And as we hit significant milestones, either with BARDA that are material and or any other type of material events occur, we'll let the market know that. Next slide, Barrie. Okay. I kind of briefly touched on this. I've seen a lot of products come and go, a lot of technology come and go, a lot of companies come and go. And in my mind, these 3 buckets will make or break you as a company and as a product trying to introduce something new into the market. So bucket number 1 is clinical benefit, right? I addressed that. It's unmet medical need. You have patients that present with very similar conditions for multiple types of cause, right? Whether it's bacterial or different types of viral infection and so forth. And it's very, very challenging for the physician to distinguish all of that. And us as a clinical aid to support that physician, this is something that no one else can do. And like I said, voice of customer is physicians are very, very positive about having this as a clinical benefit to them to say whether or not they should help them decide whether or not they should give antibiotics or not. So check that box, if you will. Next is, like it or not, economics are critical here. You have to, as a company, make money. You have to be able to sell a product at a price that allows you to have margin, right? So that you can be profitable. And likewise, all the players in the continuum must be able to make profit with it for it to be successful. So that's us as the manufacturer, that's Phase as our exclusive distributor, and that's the physicians who have to buy the test and then get reimbursed and covered at 4138. Great news. We have our PLA code. Check that box. We have the max, and now we're focused on private payers and really the combination of Acuity MD, Prospectus, and Well Street are doing a great job in driving claims into the private payers. And as we've said before, it's a numbers game. You have to drive up the utility of your test into the private payers so that it hits a threshold for them to say, okay, we want to put this into a policy and have it just run through. So we'll get there, but it is a numbers game, and certainly that numbers game will be so much better once we have CLIA waiver with us. But it is going very, very well at this stage in the game. So check the economic box. And then the last one is operational efficiency. If our product's going to take an hour at the physician office, the patient can't sit there. The doctor doesn't want the physician, the patient sitting in their, in that room, waiting for a test to be completed. And if it's not something that's extraordinarily simple, i.e., you can do it without training and get a great result and do it quickly, it won't happen in a CLIA waived environment, no matter what the test does. It needs to not only be clinical benefit, but it has to be efficient. Okay. Our product had 10 minutes, a simple prick of the finger for finger prick blood gives you our answer, and the physician can use that immediately. So we're very, very pleased that it's fitting in side by side with the COVID flu combo test at the GP office and in the urgent care. If you guys listened at all to the webinar, right, Dr. Bob talked about how they use this, and they use it. They actually use FebriDx first, and then use the COVID flu test, combo test. But using it simultaneously, one after the other, is, I think, just a terrific workflow efficiency. And so check that box for this thing. So overall, we check the boxes for this thing to absolutely, have an impact on medicine, we think, and help the docs out. Go ahead, Barrie. So with that, I do want to stress, there's a reason also that, okay, we're the first to market with a test like this, the one and only test like this on market. But it's not just that we're first. That's important. But it's also that we have the intellectual property behind our tests. So you can see here the details around the patents and so forth, how many countries and what's pending and granted, and also the time right now around our core patents here. So we have time to build this market and to ultimately be successful and really build this market here for ourselves, we think, as a business. Go ahead, Barrie. Okay, I'm just going to take a couple of quick seconds. Go ahead, Barrie, put to the next slide, and we'll just listen. Hey, I don't have a new update here other than to say the products are in feasibility. We have started to acquire patient samples so that we can actually test out our feasibility products in the women's health women's health portfolio. So that is something that's ongoing. We started that earlier. I think in January is when the first samples started to come in. So we're building a small biobank of samples here for us to test these and verify that they're products that could be moved into actual product development. Go ahead, Barrie. Okay, just a couple of more slides here. Commercial services business. The beauty of this is the same organization structure and competencies are used not only for ourselves in a product like FebriDx, but also for our partners. So we can design, develop, and manufacture these products both for ourselves, which we did with FebriDx, but also with others. And the two big examples we'll just highlight here again for the people on the call. One is with Hologic making the next generation FFN. Certainly we're pleased with 17 million in orders so far. We've brought in about half of that 7 million development so far. It continues to go well. It does slip a little bit in time, but the good news is for every month that slips, we're bringing in new development revenue to cover for that time when products. And I would just highlight the fact that when it slips, it's not because of something that Lumos is doing relative to the development. It's because Hologic will think of something new that they want to do or a different approach that they want us to try. So it's more around doing what the customer is asking us to do to make a great product for them. Activites, you saw the announcement in that. Now we're moving forward to the next stage of clinical development and moving this product forward at $1.9 million contract value that we signed up. And this is very, very exciting to bring this product for home monitoring use using our technology. So next, Barrie. Okay, just to wrap it up, right? Our priorities focused on FebriDx. Everything we have is going into that we can put into it. We're looking forward to getting a favorable response from the FDA in regard to FebriDx. With that, obviously, it's really about implementing and driving the commercialization with phase into the market. We'll continue to drive the private payer reimbursement market, but very exciting to move forward with our sales and marketing efforts with CLIA waiver. Pediatric study, that will continue throughout the year. And the work in Hologic, it continues very, very favorable, great relationship. And by the way, no impact to us relative to the announcement that Hologic, right, is potentially being acquired here. And lastly, we'll keep the market updated as we move these women's health products through our development process. So with that, Jane, I'll turn it over to you for any questions that perhaps people have.
Thank you, Doug, and thanks to you as well, Barrie. So with that, I'll now open up the floor for Q&A. Reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, you can do so using the Q&A button in the ribbon at the bottom of your screen. And we do have a few in the queue already, so we'll run through those. So Doug, in the quarterly, you commented a focus on international market. The use of FebriDx causes a fall in overall medical spend by governments. So when do you think overseas governments may rebate the cost of FebriDx?
Yeah, great question. I don't have an answer for when, but let me just say, I at one time for a former life, I ran point of care for a very large diagnostic company in Europe, right? And what you found was the U.S. typically led in terms of implementation of point of care tests. And this is the key item. It's not a lab-based test. I'd say those markets, any of those markets can lead in terms of market development work. But in point of care, the U.S. typically leads in this regard. So you try very hard to get certain markets, like Germany, the Nordics, UK, are decent at implementing it earlier than other markets. And then a lot of other markets come on once they see that it's implemented and they know, hey, there's a bunch of, to your point about cost, the health economic models are out there that they can easily see and say, okay, this makes sense to implement in this country, right? So I would say typically, unfortunately, I can say it takes time, and that could be months, years of time before you really see the other markets, advanced point of care testing the way the U.S. does.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, you did try to address this in your commentary earlier, but let's just cover it again quickly here. So what kind of questions did FDA raise, and were they serious concerns or just routine?
Well, I think if I were to try to, I'm not going to give you the exact questions that they had asked us. But I would also say anytime the FDA has a question, you take it extraordinarily seriously, right? One of my biggest, as an aside, one of my biggest concerns always, and this is my history in other companies a long time ago, when people think that they know better than the FDA and they can teach the FDA, you're in trouble. So I say that only to say that every question is important, right? And everything is taken extraordinarily seriously. That's why you have the time to have formal meetings with the FDA for clarification and, hey, what did this mean, and so forth. So we did that, and we explored that in depth with the FDA, had a great feedback back and forth and everything. But I would just say that the type of questions are very typical that they had asked us. So there was nothing there that, one of our worries was always, hey, will you make us go do an additional clinical trial, get more patient data? We were not asked to do that, right? And we didn't do. We'd have to announce that if the FDA made us go down that path. We didn't have to go do certain things like reproducibility studies and these types of things, which again, you got to use third parties and there's more risk, and we'd have to announce those things. So I would just say we took them very seriously, but they were questions that you typically will get in the normal process of working with the FDA.
Got it. Thanks, Doug. Okay. Question here. I'm very confident about FDA approval. So this is from the investor. Do we have enough numbers of Pascal cassettes for FebriDx to cover all market volume? And maybe you want to more broadly talk about scale up and things as part of that answer, Doug. Yeah,
absolutely. I'll start, and then I'm going to ask Barrie, because Barrie's working heavily with Anthony, our head of ops, around this area. So certainly we do not have enough today because we're not buying in inventory for the future today. We're building inventory that's aligned with phase and what we want to do in building the FebriDx product. So that we're doing, and we have now, we have ongoing meetings with Atomo and so forth to make sure that we're getting, product that we need when we need it and so forth. So, we don't have concerns in regard to their view of their scale-up operations that they need, because they also, right, just like we have to scale up, they have to scale up. They have their plans. They've communicated plans to us around that. We greatly appreciate that as a partner, that they've shared that with us, and that builds confidence in our ability to scale up, as we will start to do that as well. Barrie, anything that you want to add on that?
No, I think you covered it. I think the short answer is we're feeling good about our ability to deliver against the expected orders after clear waiver. That's the short answer. And I think there's a lot of detail obviously underneath that, but we have a great relationship with Atomo, who supply the Pascal cassette. at an operational level, at a CEO level, at a chair level. So I think we're working very closely together to make sure that we, prepare and scale up operations, at both companies to meet demand. So I think, we're feeling good about what we need to deliver in future.
Great. Thank you both. Okay, this is a question that we received recently, and I want to throw it in because I think it's an important one, which is once I'm presuming you receive clear waiver, what will be the immediate priorities for Lumos?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And let me first start by saying probably the same priorities exist now as they do when we have it. Okay. So I think that's really important. So, and just like you could think of those three buckets that I had there when I was talking about, right? Clinical benefit and reimbursement and efficiency, you could think of us in our priorities around this, right? It's certainly reimbursement is critical. Right, having the PLA, having the max, and now getting, the national payers to pay. Because even if it's a great product, if the insurance companies won't pay for it, you won't sell it. So reimbursement, we've been working that, will continue. That's a huge priority no matter what. Second to us is probably more what I call sales and marketing oriented, right? We work hand in glove with FaZe every day, right? You see the webinars, we go to a lot of presentations with them. We're building KOL networks and so forth. We will continue to drive that. Now you got to remember, we cannot market the product today as a CLIA waiver test. People know that we're going after it, but a lot of the CLIA waiver market doesn't even know the product's there for them or will be there for them. So that will be a big priority once we get it. Both, us and FaZe and just doing, the classic, sales and marketing that you have to do to build awareness of this product in a place as large as the US and so forth. So that'll be critical. And then that third bucket is really all around the stuff that Fab and Barrie work on, which is operations, scaling up. So the team's been doing a great job already in scaling up and, scaling up chemistry and everything up so that we can keep building our lot sizes, improving efficiency of manufacturing processes to, one, you're trying to lower costs, but you're also trying to make, right, your turns faster around the ability to get WIP into inventory and so forth. So that will become even more critical once we have CLIA waivers. So yeah, those to me are your big buckets. But Barrie, I don't know if there's a couple things that you would add to that or not.
No, I think you've covered them. The sales and marketing, reimbursement, and manufacturing preparedness. I think that covers them. Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Safe to say there's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. But we are focused. There's no we are a smaller organization still, right? 50 plus people and with a tight cash position and everything else. So we are very focused on doing the most effective and efficient use of what we need to do to drive those areas that we were just talking about.
Right. Thanks, Doug. Okay, we're pretty close to time. We've got one last question in the queue, so we'll take that and then we might move towards some closing comments. So question here, outside of FebriDx this time. So read the Burnett agreement. It seems you did all the R&D for the liver test, but Burnett's gone directly to Atomo for production and selling, and you are no more involved. Do I read that correctly?
So listen, forgive me, because this is in regard to an Atomo, I think, or a Burnett.
The liver test. But it wasn't Burnett is licensed out to Atomo.
Yeah.
So
I would just say that right? It wasn't our announcement, so it's very, very challenging for me to say, hey, what's involved in that? And I would say I don't know what in the end what the manufacturing and so forth is going to end up doing. We are a services business. Part of our services business is you can come in at any stage, design, development, manufacturing, and you can go out at any stage. That is what a contract development, contract manufacturing organization does. So, no worries there. We think that hopefully that's going to be a great opportunity for Burnett and for Atomo to drive that. If whether or not Lumos is involved, and I just can't speak to whether we will or we won't be yet. But hopefully that's a very successful project.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you both for your time. With that, perhaps, Doug, any closing comments from you before we wrap it up and let people continue on?
Yes, I would just say thank you, everyone, for your ongoing support. We do greatly appreciate it. Listen, I cannot tell you how excited we are about where we are as a business on the precipice of the next time that we have a webinar. My expectation is that we hopefully have some terrific news to share. So I'm very much looking forward to that discussion.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you once again. Thanks from me to all of you for joining today. And we look forward to keeping you across Lumos's progress. With that, though, I'll invite you all now to disconnect. Have a great day. Thank you.